Hi everyone. So today's focus is how you might upkeep your books. For example, each book has I usually write the date and where I get the books, so I can recommend them to friends, right? And then usually there's the price, there's the barcode. On top of the barcode, there's the ISBN and ISSN. ISSN is mostly for magazines and periodicals. And then I usually write down the publishing house, the website, and give feedbacks. For the newer editions. And usually, for the library purposes or for filing purposes, you can make a library card with these. And how you might file them, I'm going to show you once. First, you need labels. And you will need some kind of plastic wrap if you might share the books. And then with the labels here, having the labels, you'll mark how you might have the filing, which bookshelf. So it's similar to the library. I found my labels. One moment. So with the label, you can print it out on the internet first. And where you put them, I recommend maybe put on top or put on bottom. Most of the time is on the bottom because when you put on the bookshelf at the higher levels, you usually have the mark. But for me, I put on top. Because on the top shelves, I usually put some other things. And then you can either pencil mark or you can put color. So that's the kind of the give and take. And for magazines, magazines, right? What I value very often is commercial ads that are fashionables. Excuse me, I think I might have a message. And sometimes seeing these advertisements reminds me about the seasonal spending and to reward ourselves, right? Excuse me, to go shopping and to buy some gifts for secretaries or significant others or business associates. And these cards, subscriber cards, I usually put them aside, and these are very much important. If I see a really good articles, where's the camera at on this phone? I can't seem to focus. So tricky. Okay, and I might make a copy of this and send it out or fax it out. And those are the speeches, facts. What other books are there? Let's go through some of the. I want to take this opportunity to thank many of the magazines that I buy and subscribe to. Other than the Harvard Business Review, I look at all sorts of business review books. These are Hong Kong news periodicals. Bon Appetit. These are sort of the kinds of excuse the pillows. I had to do laundry the other day. So food, and guess what? I read the Oprah too, the old magazine. You know why? They have the books, the recommended books, popularized on the New York Times bestsellers list. And then coming back to Asia, one of the things that were most interesting are smaller size apartment spaces that are so smart. They have flip-up floors. They have glass walls, and one of the ideas that I had brought back to Hong Kong were these AC covers, but I wanted it on the top, and you can't see the AC brandings and things to easier handle gatherings with the mainland Chinese. So sometimes they don't want to see brandings, and they prefer that the meeting is very polite and no advertisements. Because in China, in mainland China, many of the factories already have an understanding what parts are built in inside each of the electronics appliances. So that's the case sometimes. That's the situation sometimes. I collect IKEA catalogs because the organizing ways are just very balanced and very well budgeted, and very practical and good value. I collect yellow pages, so that's another interesting thing. And among the yellow pages, you know where to budget for your large corporation or your townships or cities. This one cost me $100 fine, because in America, you know, right? We can just take the yellow page and go home with it. In China, they charged me. They actually called the bus and said someone took one of our yellow pages, and the budget is, I mean, they didn't say it, but it's kind of a budget issue. Yeah. So yellow pages are free. All right, free. But you have to go and pick it up. But where I live in Los Angeles, they bring it to our doorstep. Yeah. And then they have Chinese edition and English edition. Dictionaries. This is another good book when I was doing network marketing by Dale Carnegie. I like to read international publications or relating to other national developments and pace. This year I bought extra books on the French, the German, because I drove German car for many years now. I had driven and plan to. Italian, Italy, yeah. I bought some collections in the events that I might have pause on the planning the whole company, and then now it's line of companies, and I usually just make some recipe and say, hey, I had tried cooking these and that. One book I had lost was A Man and a Can by Campbell Recipes, and in that book they had a very smart way to use canned food or processed food for a meal. Why? Because we want to support the stock market and have our stock investors know what stocks to pick every year. Yep. And the new grads, for example, there might be trust funds for people that might earn a university degree and then able to earn the fundings and sources of fundings to invest into stocks and get an understanding and always constant reminder that our privileges is supported and pillared by the stock market. So in cooking, there is the pan fry, deep fry, steam, baking, cold trays, soup, and soup is stocks. They say soup stocks. So usually you chop the food and then you put the remains into a clothing bags, right? And then you put it into the soup stocks. So that was the kitchen fun. And the taste and reminders about the harvest time every year. Alright, so next topic, right? I read biographies of many great leaders, national leaders. These are considered instructional books. Instructional books is nicknamed to be self-help. So these are instructional books that are, very helpful. For example, this one is workshop decisions, and I emphasize that English is my primary language, although that I've been in ESL, English as a second language classes, because I think that English writing is faster paced than Chinese hand strokes. But in inner China and mainland China, hand strokes are simplified. So for example, a 10 stroke word is a half the count, maybe 5 stroke word, yeah. So these are instructional books. And then dictionaries. This one, Food Companion, is for kitchens, and they actually, by definition, will provide you with a better understanding, adding to your conceptual understanding. I read novels sometimes, and because I've been in boarding school for 2 years, and there wasn't always a privilege that you can watch movies, and I really suggest novels. It's similar to a movie, and you can dream about it. Alright, so novels aside, the big book. This is the book. When human and mankind, before they had enough paper to print, this was the book to print. Yeah. Alright. So when they say the book, it's the Bible. And the Bible did not print the prophets of the prophecy of Qurans and some of the say Orthodox and the other books, right? But these are all prophets. But of course, they have to register to the Vatican and decide the Bible sometimes. And the Bibles have different translations. First one was, according to what I know, is the King James Version. And then they have the New Methodist Version. And then they have the New English Edition now, of course. And the New English edition have different flow of words and punctuations. Alright? And if you read the Bible, you need the Bible story book, okay? And that's just educating the youth coming up, growing up. And making it more interesting because, you know. Oh, I also read Buddhist philosophies. So example, if you ask me what Buddhism is about, Buddhism started with the Indian prince and then branched out, and by the different environment, climate, lifestyle pace, food ingredients is in the meals, and the cultivating of the mind, you know, is able to articulate more and more Buddhism philosophy. And Taoism and Buddhism sometimes go hand in hand with their philosophies. And then there is the Islamic Quran. There's the Jewish books, the book among the Jewish. And then the African spiritual beliefs are just awaiting to be written out. The American Indians, the tribals, and their spirituality is not to neglect, because for some reason they're just so efficient. More cuisines and books. I read strategies books because sometimes among siblings or among friends groups, once somebody picked this one up, is on. Who gets the bubble gum? You know, who's buying the bubble gum and who's buying the soda, right? Put on the credit card. All right. So you know, I read novels, more novels. Novels, the profitabilities of novels includes films making and documentary, because novels have friction and non-fiction. Friction are the fake stories. Non-fiction is the documentaries, true cases. So let's see. Suspense. This is considered instructional. Instructional is The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, and hey, same name as me. And it was quoted by Mr. Warren Buffett, billionaire, way up there. He's like a king in America. More cuisines. And one day, when I was in the 20s, after I fixed up my car and modified my cars, boom, boom, you know, I got a sense of power. and someone had recommended me this book, Power. This is the 48 Laws of Power. So that was very important, and that's when I kind of knew that confrontations do not solve problems. As a middle age and nearly middle age, 39, I had accumulated a few books on parenting and baby care. This is how you hold a baby, right? With the hand underneath, so you don't drop the baby, right? More tactical books. So there are differences between strategies and tactics. Tactics is short term today. Strategy long term, maybe this year. And then my joke was no shape, and the shape differences. So you ask me the area and the circumference, the perimeter of something, I would say no shape rather than a square. But then, so that means not the newer cities, right? Don't know yet. And then later on, there were more emphasis on guidance. So when you get the cooking skills, and once you are interested and find your interest, why you want to cook, then there comes the philosophy and guidance on how you spend your money on the food intake into your food refrigerator, and how you budget, or how you sort, or how you divide your vegetables, livestock, that means poultries, and more. So you have your carbohydrates, your proteins, your organics, your seasoning, spices, and then you can preserve and be a conservative, or say conservative and what's that word? Conservationist that I proclaim sometimes. I don't eat fruits every day, oranges and fruits. I don't eat that every day, but when I see one, oh wow, I like that. Taxation. There's an annual print by one of the big four. So the big four is Ernst & Young, Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and KPMG. All right. And then people ask me, how did my company accomplish the first templates of legal forms, so that people don't say that this is some grade school stuff. There was this book. Have you ever had a university class whereas your teacher implied that on your test, not only that you need the information, you need the precise teacher's given format, every single sentence, where to center, how big the printing. Yeah. So this was a very useful resource that I had found. And let me read that. It is Made Easy Products, publishing house, everyday legal form and agreements. Dictionary wise, I mean, in the category of dictionaries, it is just amazing. I found music terminology dictionary that is completely dedicated on music words and descriptions. Linguistics category, there is the other than a national language, there is focus that aside, separate, and branching out their dialects. In Chinese, there is the 普通话, there is Mandarin without the 弱, or actually 弱 is French, but more the Z sound, yeah. And Cantonese and Fukienese, Chiujiao, Hakkanese, and many, right, dialects. But everybody speaks 普通话. English. Sometimes we have to go back to the fundamentals of music. Excuse me. On the fundamental to explain to the children why our comprehension sentences might be a one-word answer. Maybe not. Maybe not. Kind of. I don't really have to talk to children because I don't have one yet. And then you have to relate back to the grammar and sentences structures to have the certification for your scholaristic journals. Scholastic journal, scholaristic journal, or scholastic journals. It depends what institute you're at. Other than dictionary, there are illustration books on the understanding of how you manage your body, and sometimes you and your family doctors have conflicts because of the drugs categories or the production batch of the expiration dates. For example, I've been on diet pills, or they say I might need some lower cholesterol. I say, hey, help, I don't do that sometimes. And then I go to another clinic. Yeah. Because I'm very sensitive. My body is very sensitive to have to be in control. Did you know my California driver's license was ICTRLM6, and that stands for I, and then the control key, I'm always on the computer. M6, if you flip over the E, is I control me. Yeah. So that was the joke. So these are map books, and sometimes you see books or buy books that have strange titles. For example, this one say legal tax free and how to legally not pay tax. And given the fact that you might have 15 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour at the bookstores or the online websites, then you have to make the decision whether or not you read some of the opposite findings. I'm always pro-tax, so it's pro for tax, because you can always pay over the estimated tax and then get the return. That's the American way. And then when I see books like this, to me is opposite meanings, but in America we say opposite meanings. All right. And then the Atlas map books. One of the most organized and best accurate mapping books was the Atlas. So for example, there are provinces, and then the page number that goes back to the index, and then let's see if there might be glossaries. So there's not glossary, but there's the appendix to lead you back to where the maps are. And then there are the descriptions. So they spend a lot of time on these. Maybe, yeah, that day comes, yeah, I'll do that. History. You cannot neglect history. History is lessons during school that you do not repeat the same mistakes. What else? Don't go to Russia in winter because of the Napoleon stories. But I'm friendly with Russians. Yeah. So. The business graphs. These are very instructionals, and I emphasize this to my bankers and their assistants. Did you know that there are times investment bankers team share one secretary? Yeah, and I recommended these. Ethics, Chinese ethics. For example, one philosophy on Chinese ethics is no children were born with a negative mindset. They're just shy. Alright. Illustrative dictionary. When I was growing up, I had a very much pet peeve that when adults talk to me, I would just kind of go blank and then tell them 2 words, "doi kao." Yeah, so that was kind of rude when I was young. That means that there's generation gap between your mindset and my mindset, and then I would kind of hide and look into illustrative dictionaries, namely the clip arts. What else? Children books are different from adults books, and they have more illustration and mental direction for you to go and think. I've seen this, I've seen that. And if you ask me why I have some kind of pediatrician kind of